first time I sat across from him, I'll admit, I expected a monster. They call him the Plague Doctor after all. Instead, I found myself facing a man, dressed in a long black robe with gloved hands that were folded neatly. Then, that iconic beaked mask, hiding whatever face might have been beneath. But what struck me wasn't his appearance. It was his voice, calm, measured, almost gentle. "Ah," he said when I entered, "another physician." For a moment, I almost forgot I was staring at something that wasn't human. For a moment, I nearly believed he was just another doctor. Of course, that illusion wouldn't last long, because under the charm and the polite tone, there's something far darker, something that has cost lives. And to understand what I mean, I have to tell you about the Foundation's first attempts to test his so-called cure. The Foundation wastes no time when faced with anomalies that claim medical expertise, and SCP-049 was no exception. The moment he was contained, orders were signed. D-class subjects were pushed into his chamber one after another, like cows to a slaughterhouse. 049 would always begin the same way. He'd politely ask the subject questions about their health, their habits, their pains. It almost felt like a real consultation, but no matter what answers he got, he would inevitably stop, lean forward, then declare, "Yes, I see. You are afflicted. The pestilence is upon you." And that's when the real procedure began. And with one swift motion, the subject collapsed, lifeless within seconds. Then 049 would pull out his tools, scalpels, forceps, instruments that looked medieval and yet disturbingly precise. He'd operate for hours, muttering under his breath, convinced he was performing vital surgery. Suddenly, the subjects rose again. They weren't cured. They weren't even themselves anymore. The Foundation thought they might uncover a miracle cure, something hidden behind his obsession. What they got instead were grotesque mockeries of life, the first of many instances of what we now call SCP-049-2. But the experiments didn't stop there, because the Foundation's obsession with finding answers is almost as dangerous as 049's obsession with the Pestilence. Which brings me to the next piece of the puzzle. These creatures, these reanimated husks, they don't remember who they were. They shamble forward, uncoordinated, like broken marionettes. Their eyes glaze. Their speech, if you can call it that, degenerates into groans. 049 insists they're cured. He insists their suffering has ended. But standing in front of one, you'd swear you were looking at something worse than death. And yet, even the Foundation found uses for them. Researchers wanted to see how far the reanimation went. Did they feel pain? Could they obey commands? Could 049 refine his methods? Unfortunately, each test raised more questions than answers. Again, what struck me wasn't the horror of it, though there's plenty of that. It was actually how 049 reacted. When his creations failed to thrive, falling apart after days or weeks, he wasn't angry. He was saddeningly disappointed, like a teacher watching a student fail an exam. He spoke about them with pity, as though they were victims. But the real shock came when the Foundation tested what would happen if he encountered another anomaly. Because if his cure could be applied to something far stranger than humans, what might that reveal? To be honest, I still have nightmares about reading this report. In the past, the Foundation thought it was a clever idea, though. They wanted to contain two anomalies in the same place, SCP-049 and SCP-096. 096 is already a nightmare to deal with. The moment someone glimpses his face, even by accident, he hunts them down relentlessly. So when 049 entered his containment chamber, the staff held their breath. How is 096 gonna react? Would 049 even attempt contact? What happened was almost surreal. 049 approached with that same calm politeness, muttering to himself about the pestilence. After observing 096's pale figure crouched in the corner, covering his face, crying, 049 paused and softly claimed 096 was gravely afflicted. He saw 096 as a towering, twitching figure that was simply another patient. And then, without hesitation, he reached out, intending to begin the procedure. The moment his hand brushed 096's skin, the room fell into silence. 96 collapsed, a loud, audible thud. Alarms blared, guards scrambled. For an instant, it looked as though 049 had eliminated 096. The chilling part, 096 was almost knocked unconscious. 049 simply attempted to raise his tools and insisted, "I can save you," before the guards were able to separate them. The Foundation terminated the test immediately. But I think about it often. It showed us something crucial about 049. We saw his touch wasn't just capable of killing, but also that his obsession blinds him to danger. Even when staring into the maw of death, he only saw another patient, and that obsession makes him far more dangerous than his calm voice lets on. Now I want you to imagine this. You're trapped in a cell with a man who looks you in the eye, calls you colleague, and assures you that he wants nothing but to save lives. His tone never wavers, his hands never shake. That's SCP-049. Even Foundation staff, trained, skeptical, hardened, have admitted they almost trusted him. He carries himself like a surgeon from another age. His words flowed like poetry. He never raises his voice, never threatens, never snarls. And yet, with that same voice, he has ended countless lives in the name of curing a disease no one else can even detect. It's a terrifying contradiction. Someone who seems more reasonable, more polite than most people you'll ever meet, and yet will kill without hesitation if he decides the pestilence is present. That contradiction is why I keep going back. Because beneath the mask and the obsession, there are cracks, flashes of something almost human, and that's where I started to dig. I've spoken to him more than once. Sometimes he entertains questions about history, about medicine, about his travels. Sometimes he deflects, and I can't tell if he's hiding something or if centuries of memory have finally blurred. He tells stories of plagues in forgotten villages, of desperate people begging for cures. He always paints himself as the savior, but the more I pressed him, the more inconsistencies I found. Dates that didn't line up, places that couldn't have existed. Was he lying? Was he confused? Or had the Foundation, through endless questioning, chipped away at a narrative he'd been telling himself for so long that even he no longer knew what was real from fake? Still, there are moments when he feels almost human. It's when he sighs, when he hesitates before answering. Once, when I mentioned the futility of his work, his shoulders slumped ever so slightly, as though he truly bore the weight of failure. I recorded all of it, every story he's spoken, every inconsistency, every slip or stutter. If the RAISA ever approves it, I'll continue to check on him again and again. And maybe, just maybe, one day the truth will slip through those cracks. And that's my report on SCP-049, a man who isn't a man, a doctor who isn't curing anything, a monster who somehow feels less monstrous the longer you speak with him. I can't promise he'll ever change. I can't even promise he'll stay contained forever. But I can promise this: if there's a cure to be found, whether for his pestilence or for the obsession that drives him, it won't be through scalpels and corpses. It will be through understanding who or what he really is beneath that mask. Until then, I'll keep watching, and if the department allows it, I'll keep asking him questions. I'll return to his chamber, not as his colleague, but as the archivist who refuses to let his story go unwritten.